Come on, Twitch. It's Wednesday, right? Yeah, it's Wednesday. So, we're streaming. Hooray! Let's go tell the world. No, that is opening up a new file browser. It's not the same thing as telling people that I'm streaming. Streaming game dev. For some reason unknown to me, Twitter has decided that it's going to autocomplete game dev to game development, but I don't know of anyone that uses the game development spelled out in full hashtag, so no thank you. All right. So I spent the afternoon working on a file, a class, to bind UI together. So if you're interested in UI work and having a hard time getting the coding that you need in order to get the UI to work, maybe look into that. It's in my history and on my itch.io page, so on my videos and so on and so forth. You can look at that if you want to have some UI help, but that's not what we're working on right now. What we're working on right now is spaceships. I can't remember where we left off, but I think that what we should do is hit play. I'd like to release this version, maybe not today, because I am not really in great condition after spending 2 hours trying to record that video and all that stuff, but maybe on Sunday I'll release the new version. It's got all the additional stuff on it. I think what I want to do today is focus on creating new parts and massaging these existing parts, and I think that that's going to be something that's kind of fun. So let's go ahead and work on that, unless someone has a better idea. So here are the level chunks, and one of the things we've got is this curved routing module, and this goes around in a loop. It comes in from this angle and then it's supposed to come out at this angle, but the problem is that it's randomly rotated. So when the player is approaching, it doesn't always look like this. It will frequently be rotated and he'll be seeing some other angle, and these cracks start to really matter. So what I think I'll do is add a couple more of these bracers. I want to try and keep the number of bracers to, a relatively low number, these debris guides, just because they are expensive. They're not hugely expensive, but they're fairly expensive. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to add a new kind of cheaper debris element to this. And I think that a good plan for that is this this projector and this injector. I don't remember which is which, but both of these have no panel variants. So that's probably not going to be very good. I think that what happened is I got rid of the panel variants, but I believe that both of these work fine. So I can drop in a debris grid injector here into the curved routing module and move it into a location that makes sense. For example, down here. Now, if we look at the actual sizes involved, this projector is tiny, because normally what you do is just scale it up by a factor of 30 or larger, right? So now you can see it's on par with everything else in the scene. But right now, there are no panel variants built into it, which means that it's not going to be producing any actual visuals. So let's go ahead and add in some panel variants. Oh, it needs meshes, not game objects. So we'll go ahead and just take a look at some of these game objects here. I think that the panel dented and panel ripped are actually named, panel. So these are various levels of damaged panels, as you can see. So we're just going to go ahead and put them in. Something like that should work fine. We'll hit apply. And then when we hit play, it should show up. It might be overlapped with whatever game object gets spawned in afterwards. But this debris grid injector should have debris on it. It doesn't appear to have any. Is it not something that works anymore? It might be that it doesn't work anymore. Let's take a look at this, this floating debris guide down here. These are the debris grid injectors that I'm currently using, and they have settings that are identical to the one I put in, right? Yeah, they're just in a slightly different order with the meshes, which should be fine. Maybe it needs an override material. Didn't I hit play? I must have hit next frame without hitting play. Not very bright. I'm presuming that everybody can hear me. Both of you. Alright, so when we hit forward, we should see panels, but I'm not seeing them. So I'm trying to remember exactly what the process is here, and there is a potential issue. Draw instance to base. There it is. So the issue is that this doesn't have a draw instance to base. So I've got to put it into another object that does, because it's not responsible for drawing its own objects. That would be expensive, and I wouldn't be able to batch them right. So there's a draw instance to base that we use to actually start with those objects. But it doesn't appear to be working even now that it has a draw instance to base above it. Did I drag the wrong thing in? I bet I dragged the wrong thing in. I'm not sure where this debris caster, if this is what I wanted or not. Let's go ahead and delete this and put it back in, because I dragged something and I don't know what I dragged, and I'm not sure. Not sure how screwed up it got, so we're just going to drag it back in. And we're going to go ahead and just duplicate one of the existing ones, since we know they work. So here is a debris grid injector, which we can duplicate and then drag out as a separate object. And that's like a little bit small, so we're going to go ahead and bring that up to a larger scale, like so. And then when we hit play, it should work. So where were we? We've gotten overlapped pretty badly here. For now, let's drag this whole thing out of the way so that we don't have that overlapping problem. I really should be working on this in a completely new environment that doesn't have any other crap going on, but you know how it is. Okay, so this doesn't appear to be creating any debris. I don't see any debris on it, but I also don't see any debris on any of these other guys. That's interesting. It's possible that there is something wrong with the debris system in general. Let's go ahead and hit apply here, and then delete this and hit play, and let's go look for one. So this is it. This should be one. I mean, this could be a straightaway, but I don't think so. Well, whether it's a straightaway, there it is. So you can see it is covered in debris. For some reason, it wasn't showing up in scene view, but they are done in an interesting way, so that's entirely something plausible. There we go. So I think that that's fine. Let's go ahead and keep working on this stuff with the understanding that that actually works. So here's the curved routing module again. And if we look at it, we have to keep in mind that there are a bunch of different angles that we could be viewing it from, and it's impossible for us to know exactly which direction the player is going to be looking at it. So we're going to want to tighten down this gap while still making it really obvious to the player that this is where they're supposed to go, right? So we'll just go ahead and close off this area in the back, and we'll do it using duplicates from nearby objects, because that way we won't have any problems with the objects having extraordinarily large draw distances. So, because the draw base controller is the one responsible for actually drawing all these shards, and if it has a large, like a lot of shards from all over, it's going to end up being really, really expensive, and we don't want that. So we're going to go ahead and scale that up. And we're also going to go and increase the amount of width that we have here. There we go. And then we're going to duplicate that again and flip it over and move it to the other side. Like that. Keeping in mind that that red boundary is, in fact, something that the player will get affected by, because it's going to have debris in it. It's going to be noticeable. So we're not just placing the box, we're also placing the glowy bits that show you exactly where all of these things are going to go in the final version. So if we then hit apply, we'll have saved it, and now the routing module should be a lot clearer. The only question is whether we can lure the player into actually going into the routing module, or whether or not we are going to have to be more clear that this is a tunnel and you're supposed to go in. I think it's pretty clear. There's a flashing light, and it should lure you in, right? And when you go over to look at the flashing light, you should quickly see that there are other things happening here. And then you should just naturally be able to skew into the next unit. And that's the idea. So that's good. Let's go ahead and alter the broken ship side. The problem with the broken ship is that it has a lot of elements that are not actually on. And I mean that in several ways. First off, it has a lot of elements that aren't turned on by default. But second off, it has a lot of elements that don't have colliders. And so what happens is we've got this massive, massive ship, but everything over here, most things over here, don't have colliders. See, there's no colliders on any of these. And that means that if the player decides to go over to the other side of the ship, they're not going to be able to feel anything. It's going to feel very unnatural because there's nothing over there. So the result is that we're going to want to skew off the other half of the ship and just have a huge amount of debris. There is some question as to whether or not I should have something more deadly, so that if you go over to the far side of the ship, there's like a radiation warning or something. But we'll leave that for later. For now, we're just going to focus on making it so that the ship is interactable. So because of that, we're just going to start deleting objects, but I think we're going to want to create a duplicate and save the duplicate as a different name. So we're going to go ahead and call this broken ship residential lane, and we'll save that as a different object like this. Because that way we won't worry about accidentally deleting something cool looking that that we might want to use again later. So we're going to go ahead and just start deleting things that don't have colliders like this, and we're going to just want to make it clear that that we want to have the interior of the ship just be garbage. It's just destroyed, right? So we're going to be including a lot of the debris materials down in here. To do that, we just want to make sure that the rest of the ship still does have colliders, because all of these objects need to be collidable, and right now they're not. So we're going to add colliders to the few things that are left that aren't collidable. Box collider for this guy, and we're going to go ahead and do a mesh collider for this guy. Now those aren't precise. The player might notice that there is something that they're bouncing off of and stuff, but we'll go ahead and just leave it like this for now. We can fix it later on if we have to. So there's a bridge module here, which I cannot even see. Oh, for some reason this is called Bridge Module 5, even though it's not. Interesting. We'll go ahead and add in a mesh collider there as well. And if we take a look at the rest of the ship, where else do we need more colliders? This thing down here at the bottom that you can't really see, this also needs colliders. So let's go ahead and set them up with colliders. Now these are interior engine components, but they're not going to be interior all the time. In many cases, you're going to be able to see them when these components get blasted away, because these components get damaged by a script. So these interior elements are going to need to have mesh colliders, but I can't see what's going on, and I think the reason for that is because I've turned off the selection. So let's turn it back on so that we can see what we're working on. And this is going to need, I guess, it's supposed to be an interior object. I guess our best bet is a collider. I'm trying to think of which kind of collider would be best for this. A capsule collider would be ideal if we can get away with it, because it's super cheap. We'll have to see how that feels. Anyway, we've got a couple more of them, and we'll just do capsule colliders for all of them for now. And then we've got some more hull plates. These all have colliders. Cargo module with no collider, so we're going to want to add a collider to that guy. I think that's going to have to be a mesh collider with a convex wrapper. And over here we've got another one. Structural beam. That has a mesh collider already. Bridge module, bridge module, bridge module, bridge module. Hab module, these are all the things that get blown up, so they don't count. Inlets, so those are the guides. So I think that might be everything. Oh, that doesn't have one. And that doesn't have, well, that one does, yeah. So there we are. Now that whole ship should have collisions, but what it doesn't have is a ton of debris coming off of the sides. So to do that, we're going to want to add in the debris objects that we might use somewhere else, but shape them so that they fit this ship rather more perfectly. So we're just going to grab from these debris casters. I actually don't remember whether these debris casters are the real deal. Yeah, these are. These are raw, small particle debris casters. These are just going to fill any given volume with an arbitrary amount of tiny particle matter. But what we're also going to want is some heavy particle matter. So for those, we're probably going to need to use the debris grid injector. So let's put in a floating debris guide, because that's the most easiest way to do it at the moment. Here's a floating debris guide. You can see it's obviously too big. And we can drag this in and move it around. The key to this is that there are several pieces attached to this that have debris coming off of them, all of these grids. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to remove the hull plate like that, and we're just going to go with these grids. We're going to modify these grids so that they only come in sheets. So let's go ahead and see how we want this to look. If we were going to make this a little bit bigger, we'd get a little bit more use out of it. We can rotate this 90 degrees, something like that, and then we can move it into our ship like so. And in doing this, we can create a complex field for our ship that blocks the player from naturally poking their nose into areas where the ship doesn't have any decent geometry. So let's scale this up again to 2. Like that. And then down here, well, what we'll do is we'll just duplicate this guy and move him down. And then what we'll do is we'll duplicate the entire debris guide, and we will move it over and flip it. Come on. There we are. And then we can move it down and rotate it. Yeah, like that. Or even like that. And this should produce a field of debris, which is very noticeable. So let's go ahead and save this as its residential broken ship lane, like so. And then we're going to go ahead and put that into the level builder instead of the one-side residential, because the one-side residential is not up to snuff. So let's go see if we can find one. Crash. I don't think we found one. I don't think there's going to be one in this level. And we'll have to restart the level and try again. Even though there's only 3 options. I knew it was going to happen. I'm not really paying enough attention because I'm thinking about whether or not I can see any signs of it being the next thing in the list. But it's not. There's no ship in this particular level. I could delete the other options, but here we are. This is how it looks. So we've got this debris field on this side, which is where we're supposed to focus all of our attention, and you can tell because that's where all of the parts are. But if we were to go around to the far side, what would we see? And would we be able to bounce off of stuff? So for example, if we go down here, see how we just passed through that? I forgot to add colliders to them. So we're gonna have to fix that. But you can see that this is just a giant pile of debris. So the idea here is that when you go a place that's off of where you're supposed to go, you don't really see anything useful. You just see debris. And because of that, the player will hopefully get trained into trusting their radar. We will see how that works out, but that's the idea. Another option is that we can create ship elements that are stapled to other ship elements. The problem is that we currently do continuous twisting, so everything is aligned at a random angle, and that can mean that the ship elements won't line up properly. But if we would like, we could have a level building setup where you can optionally have ship-to-ship links that lock in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add to our level module here a new value. First off, we are going to make this Boolean not show up. So now there's a tooltip for something that doesn't show up. Great. And we're going to want a new Boolean value, which is contiguous ship. Tooltip. If output is a ship. Let's go ahead and rename this. So if ship, what do you call it? Entering as ship and leaving as ship. Ship chain start, ship equals false, and ship chain stop. Tooltip. If true, don't spin and prioritize other ship chain elements. That way, what we'll be able to do is have ship chains where we form a contiguous ship that could be miles and miles long. So that should be fun, right? Let's go ahead and build towards that. So we're going to drop this residential lane back into the game world again. And what we're going to do is we're going to rebuild it with the idea that this is not the end of a ship. This is the middle of a ship. So we're going to turn these on, and then we're going to delete the engine section here. So with that in mind, we'll go ahead and just delete these. But with that in mind, I'm thinking these are no longer accurate because, well, actually, this is the rear of a ship. Okay, so this is actually the rear of a ship, so we don't need to delete the engines. And that means that it doesn't start as a ship chain. It ends as one. But the problem is that these outputs are all, like, they're all over the place. And that means that the ship chain will end up being all over the place. We'll go ahead and see how that looks. But what we need right now is a continuous element. So we're going to go ahead and call this residential continued, a resident rail. And that's going to be a new object in here, which is going to go ahead and have a ship chain start and a ship chain stop. And the idea behind this guy is that it's going to be locked into this previous ship most of the time. And because of that, we're going to need to modify these intakes. We'll delete 2 of them, and we're only going to use this one intake, and it's going to be exactly aligned with what we would think. That's a scale. I didn't want to change the scale. It's going to be exactly aligned with what we would expect the rest of the ship to be. Now, it's okay if the ship is partially off-center or skewed, because that's just, you know, the nature of damage. But we want it to feel like it is, you know, a continuous stream. So we're going to go ahead and put it like here-ish, because that's roughly where it is on the output, as you can see. And that should give us a nice setup. With that in mind, let's move it into a new location so that we can delete the engines and stuff, because this is not going to be of any use to us. Now that said, I remember that, before I forget, these are not bounceable. I thought they had, okay, they don't have mesh. I thought they had mesh elements, but they don't. So we're going to want to have all of these bridge elements have a mesh collider that is convex. And we're going to go ahead and inflate. It looks like some of these are more difficult than others. This one just has 2 mesh colliders, because that's obviously wrong. So I'm not sure why it's not giving me the option to inflate. Ah, here we are. So we're going to go ahead and inflate these so that they don't have as many complex elements to them. There we go. Now over here, we also want to get rid of, oh no, those are all fine. But what we're going to want to do with this guy is we're going to duplicate these bridge modules and move them to the back as well. So duplicate and then flip. Oh. No. There we go. And it sounds like the storm is getting going in earnest outside. I came home early because we're having a heck of a nor'easter. And it looks like everybody's trash cans just blew over. At least that's what it sounded like. So we don't want these engines. And we don't need the engine interiors either. So that's all fine. Yeah, that's good. But what we're going to want is these bridge modules to fill that gap. Like so. And then we'll just grab this one and move it up a little bit. Now we've got some debris, but the debris is not in the right spot and not quite arranged correctly. So we're just going to grab this guy in the back here, I guess, duplicate him, and then move him to the front as well, so that we get a nice set of debris elements for the entire ship length, or for the entire module length. It's only part of a ship, as we've already discussed. I think that's good enough for testing purposes at the very least. So that's going to be our secondary element, the resident rail. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to change the level creation code. So here's the level builder. We're going to add the resident rail into our set, but we're also going to want to modify the level builder so that it acts a little bit differently when it detects that there is a ship stop, a ship ending. There we go. So here we have an update. We check and see all of this stuff. If something needs chaining rather, we create a new random module, and this is where we need to put in some safeties. So we're going to go ahead and check and see whether or not the active module is one that ends in a ship part. So if current.ship chain stop ends in a ship continuation, perhaps proceed in one. We're going to want to try and come up with two options. So for this, we're going to go ahead and say level module next equals this. And then in here, what we'll say is if next dot starts ship, what is it? Ship chain start. There it is. So if the next we currently have isn't a ship chain start, then get another next. Now this isn't guaranteed to get a ship chain going, but it is more likely to get a ship chain going. And we can always go ahead and just do it twice. There are more elegant ways to do that, but screw elegance, right? So with that in mind, we also need to make sure that when we add these in, we only spin if we are not a ship chain into a ship chain. Now to deal with that, what we've got here is we're locking to the current outlet transform position and the current outlet transform forward, right? If we go over into this, this lock doesn't let us specify whether or not we're supposed to spin, but we have the spin command in here. So we're going to go ahead and put in a bool spin equals true. And then here we'll go ahead and say if spin. Perfect. And then what we'll do is over here in the level builder, we'll only spin if we are not ending and starting a ship chain. So bool spin equals next dot start ship chain and current dot end ship chain. And then we'll pass that in here. Rather, not that. We will we'll not spin. There we go. And what that means is that if we are moving from a ship chain into a ship chain, then we don't spin it, because that would just make the ship not make any sense. And instead, we're locking it in nice and tight. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and see whether or not this works. We got any errors? I don't think so. We do. But that's all other stuff. We're not going to worry about that. Scattered debris requires a mesh set. And this isn't the same stuff, but let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on here. If mesh sets equals 0. So I don't know which scattered debris this is talking about, so we're going to have to give it a name here. Scattered debris plus name. There's a name for these guys, right? Yeah. At, and then we'll give it a location as well. Transformed up position requires a mesh set. And what we're going to need here is to hit play again, because I think what that is it's just me having screwed something up in a dumb way. There we go. So let's check this out. This is a debris caster at negative 1500 and so on and so forth. Let's move the ship to those coordinates. So negative 1500 and negative 550 and 340. There we are. And then what we'll do is we'll just take a look at it. Well, I don't see a debris caster at those coordinates. Well, these are all local, are they? No, they're global, so I should be able to see what the heck they're talking about, but I don't. So we're looking for a debris caster that doesn't have a mesh set, but these all have mesh. Oh, there was one. There, see that? That one? That one. So this is the bad one, and that is inside of the level builder's broken ship resident rail. So I've got a resident rail element that doesn't have any mesh sets. So let's drop the resident rail back in and fix that. Was it one of these? No, it was named a debris caster, wasn't it? So there, that guy. Oh, it's the raw particle system, which for some reason I didn't save as having any mesh sets. How awkward. So we're gonna go ahead and just give that the same old broken desk mesh set. Which one of these is it? There it is. It's deskish there. And then the material will be prox hull. I believe it's prox hull. It might be prox debris. It's prox debris, isn't it? That's fine. And we don't have to worry about any of that stuff, I don't think. Pause, rot, and scale. I think that those all get filled in. Yeah, those all get filled in, so that's not a big deal. And we'll go ahead and make this 10,000. And we'll hit apply. Okay, so here we have an issue. So that's not the right, it turns out that's not the right value. So let's go ahead and bring that back in again and fix that up, because it's clearly not what I need. It's not prox debris after all. It must be prox hull. Yeah, so that should be fine, I guess. There we go. So we now have nothing wrong. Hooray! Okay, so let's take a look. This is one of the pipes. I think it's a 90-degree pipe. Oh, and here is a ship. So this is one part of the ship, but at the end of the ship you can see that we are going into another debris segment instead of a second ship. So that's bad luck. Let's try it again. One thing I can do is I can simply remove the debris casters until we're sure what's going on with the ship. So why don't I go ahead and do that. So we're going to go down into the level design element, and we're just going to go ahead and remove these linear routing modules. Boom. All right, so this now should be a chain of 6 largely unbroken ships. I mean, they'll be shattered, but they should be like just in a row. So let's back off and see how it looks. So what do you think? Does it feel like it's a husk? And we should get more ship. There it is. Now, I don't know whether or not those are all properly aligned. I don't think they are. It feels like they're still spinning is what I mean. So if we take a look here, the flying mode is so slow. Okay, so down here, you can see that these are all more or less aligned. I think that one of the outputs might be tilted, and that might be what's going on. But is this last one? Those are all resident rails, so they should all be in a nice row, and they're all tilted a little bit. I guess that's fine. I'm not too concerned. Yeah, look, these are actually tilted themselves. I guess that's fine. I'm not too concerned. That seems fine. Let's go ahead and try it one more time. So I got an out of range exception. Where did I catch that? Requires a mesh set. So I bet that there might... Is there one in... There shouldn't be one in the residential anymore, but this resident lane has the same problem, I would bet. Yeah. So here we've got a problem where the mesh set doesn't exist. We'll go ahead and do what we were doing before with the deskish and the material, which is going to just be the hull. I'm not actually sure that that's the right material, but I can always fix it later. And we'll go ahead and save that. And then it shouldn't get any more errors like that. I should probably change the prefab to be correct. Yeah, you know what? I think this is fine. I think this is just great. I don't like the spawn in, obviously. I can work with that later. But I think that visually it looks great in terms of the chaining together and looking like they're proper destroyed husks. I know that there will be players who, I think every player, will probably try to see what's on the other side of the husk, and there won't be anything and they'll feel disappointed. One thing I could do is I could make it so that there were like optional exits on this other side of the husk, where if you get close enough to the optional exit, it spawns in the other half of the ship or something. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm just going to leave it as loose debris. And I mean, this is quite a lot of debris, so it should be fine, right? Let's go ahead and share that as a screenshot just for kicks. No, that's load scene. I wanted to stop. There we are. Let's pop on over. I am very hungry, but I can't eat until my dinner finishes cooking, and it's still got 45 minutes. Created the contiguous ship ruins part of my randomized levels. Indie dev. I already pasted it in once, that's fine. Let's go ahead and take a couple more screenshots. I might get off early because I talked for 2 hours before I started this. And so my voice is already dying. So one of the things I like is that it is definitely kind of a moving in sort of feeling in terms of it skewing in the... I just lied to myself though, because it's not really skewed in the direction I thought it was. That's fine. I can always adjust this stuff as many times as I need to make it feel decent. This would probably be a little bit faster with some upgrades. Alright, well, that was fun. 10Chaos1 says, grab a slice of bread with some butter or margarine. Believe it or not, I'm out of butter. All I have is stinky cheese. But I expect that I will be fine as soon as dinner finishes cooking, since it is quite a big dinner. Alright, anybody have any questions or anything? Because that's actually all I wanted to do today, and I need to think for a little bit about other things that need to be done. I think I'm going to have to go and start to create other kinds of damaged modules. Right now, all the damaged modules that we've got are just these HAB modules, and these aren't enough. I need to have damaged bridge modules and damaged cargo modules. I'm not sure whether or not I want to do all of those on screen, but I'm certainly going to do a vast quantity of them on stream. Probably do some of them off stream too, just because there is a lot of grunt work involved. But I need to also create low poly versions of the bridge for the collider. I might do that off screen too. Well, I hope you had fun with this short little stream. I actually am not going to be able to wait for my dinner. I am so hungry. I'm going to go have some honey toast or something. See you around.